Alrighty, so we're going to talk about VMG, or velocity made good at the mark, is what the acronym stands for. And this is pretty important to know how this works. Basically, what this is saying is how fast are you getting to the next mark of your race course, right? So it's not necessarily concerned with how fast you're going in a straight line. It's concerned with how long is it going to take you to get to the next mark. So for kind of an example of what we're talking about here, the yellow boat right here is sailing along, and we'll just give him an arbitrary speed. Let's say he's sailing 5 knots straight ahead, right? So in a straight line, his speed is 5 knots. His VMG, however, is 0, because no matter how long he sails here, he's never going to actually make any gain toward the mark. You could actually say his VMG right now is negative, because if he goes over here, he's actually farther away from the mark. So we can use the concept of VMG here while we're trying to figure out how to get to the windward mark as fast as possible, right? So one thing to remember is basically the farther away you are from the wind, the faster your boat's going to move in a straight line, right? So blue boat here is going to be moving faster this direction than the red boat is moving in this direction. That's just the science behind how the airflow of the sails work. The farther away you are from the wind, assuming your sails are trimmed correctly, the faster you're going to go. So we can look here. Obviously, these boats are on all different headings. They've got very different paths that they have to take to get to the mark, right? So this boat is heading way up. His sails are really going to be just barely on the edge of what works to pull the boat forward. And so while he does have a very short path to go compared to the other boats here, his speed is going to be pretty down. His boat speed is going to be real slow while he's doing this. So this boat you could think of as properly close hauled. So let's see, his path is a little bit longer than the red boat, but his boat speed is going to be greatly improved because he's not pinching up so hard. That's going to work out a lot better for him. So this green boat here is footing, and basically what that means is he's not quite up on that close haul line. He's down a little bit, just a couple degrees. We can kind of see that. It's not a lot of difference, but that couple degrees is going to give him a bit more boat speed. So while he does have a longer path, sometimes that'll work out. The extra boat speed will balance out. This becomes more apparent in maybe the 420 rather than the FJ, especially as you have more breeze on the race course. After you kind of get away from the big pack in the middle of the starting line, when boats start to spread out going up the course, you're going to go down and be footing for speed, because that's how the 420 likes to sail. Typically, FJs are going to be better at pointing, so they don't have so much of a speed increase if they go down a few degrees. So it's just because of the way their hull shape is, they're designed more for lighter winds, for pointing up higher. And so they like to point. So if you're sailing lower in the FJ, that's usually not going to work out for you as well. That's why we stress pointing ability so much in our practices in FJs. Now we can look at the blue boat here, and this blue boat is, you definitely would still describe this as footing, but he's very, very much lower than any of these other boats. And this is something, along with the red boat, that you'll see more in newer sailors who are just figuring things out. They're not able to keep up on the wind as well, and so they are definitely going faster than these other boats, but they also have a very much longer distance to travel. And at this point where you're heading so far down, you're maybe 5, 10, 15 degrees lower than, say, the yellow boat who's up on his close hauled line. And even though you are moving faster, that extra speed increase just is not going to be able to cancel out this vastly greater distance that you have to travel to get up to the mark. If we're dealing with flat water, or a bit higher wind speeds, or a boat with a narrower hull design like the FJ that can point better, then pointing is probably the way to go to get the highest amount of VMG, to get up to that windward mark the fastest. Footing would be a better option if there's chop, little small waves. We need to be a little bit more bow down to keep power to get through those waves. If it's really light air, that's going to give you, again, a little bit more power, a little bit more boat speed, and that boat speed is going to cancel out that extra distance you have to go. Also, different boats. The 420s the hulls are a lot wider and flatter, the jib is a lot smaller, so it doesn't like to point as well as say the FJ does. When we were talking about sailing upwind, we said the farther away from the wind you are, the faster you'll go. We can kind of think of there as being a midpoint, right? So think of our beam reach, or maybe kind of a high broad reach. This is like the absolute maximum boat speed you'll be able to get. So your boat speed will increase as you head down here until you get to this point, and as you head up from a run, your speed will increase until you get to this point. So that's kind of where we're coming from there. So if we apply this to the downwind, we know that we'll go faster from moving up from a run to a reach in general. But also if we head up to a higher reach, or you might call it a hotter angle, then your boat speed is also going to increase. So it becomes very similar to what we talked about on the upwind. This short path versus slower speed, this longer path versus greater speed, this even longer path versus potentially even greater speed. You have to balance that out. So it's just like balancing out the upwind, those different angles, for reaches downwind, right? We can't be so low that our jib is blanketed and not helping us, but we can't be so high that we're going too far, too great of a distance to be able to make that up with the speed. So in both directions, upwind and downwind, it's a balancing act.